across the way Muslims are talked about.
Okay.
Because the discourse about Muslims is so, skewed and wrong, just completely wrong, that we never come to actually identify the real problems, because we are always, looking at them from this religion, point of view, and we're not looking at their political positioning, their economic situation, etc. So if you ask me, and I were to give really simplistic answer, which I hate doing, but I'll do it, then there are two problems that are top problems of Muslim women. One, the poverty of Muslim community.
Okay.
Two, all the anti-Muslim violence and devastation that Muslim community has faced for over decades, and it is only intensifying. There's no sort of relief from that.
Even in Delhi, people are openly shouting slogans.
Genocidal slogans.
Yes.
Right. Those are the problems of Muslim women too.
Okay. Hello friends, my name is Abhay Kumar, and today my guest is Ghazala Jamil. She is at present teaching at Center for Law and Governance at Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU, and she has earlier taught at Delhi University. Her PhD is in the Department of Social Work, and she has written several books around identity of Muslims, and then economy, and also feminism, social development, social exclusion. Her book, you know very well that Accumulation by Segregation has been well received. Apart from that, she has also written two books, Muslim Women Speak, which was published by SAYS 2 years back, and also her recent book, which is a collection of articles on gender and the questions of women in social sciences. It is also out. But today I am going to talk about the issue of Uniform Civil Code, the questions of Muslims, women and gender. So, Madam, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you so much.
As you know very well that recently the Delhi High Court has said that the government should go for Uniform Civil Code, and this has been the long issue and it has been a big controversy. So your take on that, what do you think that Uniform Civil Code, do you support it, and do you think that it is helpful in achieving or claiming the rights of women, particularly Muslim women?
This is a very complicated question. I can't say that I support the idea of Uniform Civil Code. Although there is a constitutional aspiration which has already been articulated that there should be a Uniform Civil Code, but I can't bring myself to support that idea, and I don't think that uniformity in law is something that has held back the betterment of women's situation in India. That's not the problem. So it's like there is a problem that women are, of course, they face a lot of violence in Indian society. The burden of poverty, there is so much patriarchy, and there are so many complications related to that. So yes, women's position in Indian society is subordinate, and there is that problem. But whether Uniform Civil Code will solve that problem, especially for Muslim women, I don't think that is going to happen. And why I say that is not going to happen is because, this is, and in the present times, we have also access to another kind of critique. You've heard recently lot of slogans like, one country, one election, one country, one this, one that.
One law, yes. One tax, one language, one religion.
Yes.
One color.
So we know what is the problem with that. Similarly, one uniform law for a country that is, full of such diverse communities is not going to solve problems. It's actually going to raise many more problems. There's a reason why India has a system which is, called legal pluralism. And we have many legal systems coexisting in India, and so does most other country. I mean, even countries that do not have as much diversity as India, no country can say probably, that they have completely uniform laws. There's got to be some, sort of.
But why there is so much appeal for uniformity? if I'm correct.
Abhay, you were a historian. So let's, if we look at it historically, this whole idea about uniformity and the idea of India as a nation, because, when we became independent, we were really, so many nations together. And the Indian state has had to, apart from many other things, has had to also build the whole idea of nation, India as a nation. And sometimes it did that as a benevolent, institution. Sometimes it was a repressive institution which forced, princely state, etc., to come and join Indian state. So the idea of oneness is something which has really caught our national imagination for a very long time. And it's a legitimate anxiety, because we are so diverse. We sometimes think diversity itself might be causing many problems, but it's not the diversity itself that causes the problem, but inequality with diversity is what causes the problems. So what we want is equality. What we don't want is uniformity. We want equality in law, not uniform law.
Okay. So your argument is that uniformity in law is not going to achieve a lot. So we must respect diversity. There should be equality, plurality, but not making laws same for everybody.
Right. And also, especially as a Muslim woman, the way the discourse on Uniform Civil Code happens, a lot of people could be forgiven to think that Uniform Civil Code or coming of Uniform Civil Code only means abolition of Muslim personal law. So if that is what they are aiming at in their, majoritarian sense.
No, but in majoritarian imaginations, how it is being propagated, they are arguing that it may be hidden agenda, that bringing about Uniform Civil Code means that doing away with the personal laws and also changing the color of the laws as per, let's say, one particular interpretation, one particular way that is.
No, the thing is that this discourse is actually wrong, or there is misrepresentation of this, both on right and the, left spectrum of opinions in India. So it's not just about religious personal laws which will be abolished. If they're saying, well, abolish all religious personal laws of all minorities, do they mean that? Or will the Hindu personal law also be abolished? And then if Hindu, Christian, Zoroastrian, Muslim, all personal laws are abolished, what is going to take that space?
But why progressive forces, those
so-called progressive
so-called progressive forces, why they have upheld this Uniform Civil Code, why they were supporting for so long?
I think, because majoritarianism is so deeply ingrained in the best amongst us.
Okay.
But the thing is that India as a legal plural system, it doesn't only have personal laws related to these major religions, whether Hindu
Tribals
religion
also have their customary laws as well.
Right. So there's so many customary laws, and there is also other kind of non-uniformity, which is not related to personal law. But let's say, for example, we have Part 11 of the Constitution of India, which says these are the legislative. These are the domains of society, or on which the center can legislate, and these are the domains on which the states can legislate, and these are the domains on which both can legislate. And even there they say, well, uniformity is desired, but it's not necessary. And on something like, let's say, police, for example. Legislating on police is something that states do differently, and there's no uniformity in that. So not only do we have non-uniformity in personal law, but we do have non-uniformity in various other laws. How do we reconcile ourselves to the fact that so many planes or registers on which non-uniformity of law exists already in India? And so this idea that if we do away with Muslim personal law only, then we will sort of ameliorate the position of Muslim women. That itself is problematic.
Okay. So now let me take one question on Muslim personal laws. It has been in news, it has been in controversy for last 5-6 years at least, when the new government came to power. So as a scholar, as a woman born in Muslim family, as an anthropologist who has worked so much among Muslim women, your book, as I was talking about, Muslim Women Speak, is about the rich anthropological work. So what is your view? What do you think that Muslim personal laws, as some scholars have argued, as there has been propaganda by the right, are Muslim personal laws hurdle in the path of Muslim women right, or do you hold contrary view?
Yeah, I would hold a contrary view. I don't think that it is Muslim personal law by itself that has, see, even in my first book, which is my PhD, Accumulation by Segregation, the starting point of that work was whether Muslims' lives in India or elsewhere are only governed by Islam, or are there other
No, I have also worked in my PhD. Almost 98% of our life, be it Hindu and Muslim, they are governed by uniform laws. Only in the matter of divorce,
no, I'm not talking
marriage.
I'm not talking only about law, but I'm saying our social lives are not governed only by religion, right?
Okay,
For example, there is capitalism, there is the state itself and its actions. For example, there was so much discourse since the 90s onwards about liberalization, privatization, globalization. Has that not impacted Muslim lives?
Yes.
Right. So there are so many social forces and political forces that impinge upon all lives, including Muslims' lives.
Yes. So Huntington and other people, they have also made a big mistake in their scholarship, that when they have to look at other society, they will take different factors. But when they have to look at Muslim, they will only take Islam and religion.
So that's true for Indian Muslim women as well.
Yes.
Where you think, their only problem is Islam and Muslim men's behavior.
Yes.
Now, the thing is that the biggest problem that Muslim women and Muslim community by and large faces is poverty and lack of, access to resources. That's the biggest problem, not the personal law itself.
PhD and the book Accumulation by Segregation,
where I've discussed this.
Yes.
Now, but even if we were to look at, what is the impact of Muslim personal law, and especially related to divorce, I have a very contrarian view, which is, I said how unity is something that has been an Indian concern. And so therefore, from that anxiety and wish for unity, there's also often this, twisted sense of uniformity that, is often aspired. Similarly, another thing that, since independence and even probably before that, it's the nature of Indian society. One institution that we've been obsessed with is family. Right. Now, family is an important institution. I'm not saying it's not an important institution, but family, it's any feminist worth their name would agree that family is also a site of violence and site of oppression for women. Right. And this idea that family somehow should remain intact at whatever cost, and especially marriages should not break down. And the idea that a divorce is like a catastrophic, event for a woman, that in itself is problematic thinking.
Okay. So you are saying that women are suffering at multiple places, but now the issue of divorce has been projected, have been brought to the mainstream as if that this is the only problem. If a state makes laws and if a state is
then
able
everything
to
will be
control
all right.
divorce, the rate of divorce, then everything will be okay.
Yeah.
And only Muslims women are suffering from divorce.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's the problem.
Yes.
Now the issue is that actually the truth is that if I was actually looking at some of the data, and the 2011 census, according to that, there is high incidence of divorce amongst Muslims when compared to Hindus. I'm talking about rate. I'm not talking about absolute numbers, because Hindus are in a majority, so there is, in absolute numbers, there are more divorced people amongst Hindus.
Yes.
And
But there is also not authentic data.
No, but listen to me.
Yes.
But even there, because we're always, what we are doing is we are comparing Hindus with Muslims all the time, and we are losing sight of all other communities. But what I noticed, which many articles did not talk about, was actually that the divorce rate was highest in by religious communities amongst the Buddhist, and not amongst Muslims. So for every 1,000 women, how many women and how many men would be divorced? That rate is actually highest amongst the Buddhists. So what do we say about Buddhist women's social position? What should we?
So you are arguing that things are projected in a very, what should we say, in
skewed way.
Skewed way.
No, and so, plus I want to say, what if many women are divorced? The problem lies in the fact that because there is this provision for instant triple talaq in India, which is of course also outlawed in many other Muslim societies, that becomes a tool for anti-Muslim propaganda. Whereas the truth is actually that many Muslim women also actively seek divorce. So if you look at, there have been some very good studies recently on, the institution of Darul Qaza, which are pejoratively called Sharia Adalats, etc. So if you look at the data of Darul Qaza from anthropological and very recent and fresh work, you would realize that more than half of the cases that they hear, and I'm just giving you a ballpark figure, it's different for different states, etc. But a majority of their cases that they are hearing are actually cases of divorce filed by Muslim women asking for divorce.
So your argument is that it is a stereotype. Yeah, a stereotype fact that only Muslims women are divorcing and Muslim women have no agency.
Right.
You are arguing on the contrary that large number of Muslim women are also filing cases for the divorce. But then your critique would argue that who is deciding, who is at that driving seat? It is the, let's say, male Muslim clergy.
Well, within that relationship, there is a man and there's a woman who are married to each other, and for various reasons, the woman, if she wants a divorce, yes, there is inequity in the fact that a man can unilaterally, without recourse to any institutional mechanisms, can give divorce. And of course, the instant triple talaq is highly problematic and must be
outlawed. Yes.
Now it's outlawed, but I mean, even the community must revisit that. But the idea that all divorces are happening because men are unilaterally divorcing women, Muslim women, is not true. There are a large number of Muslim women who are also asking for divorce and getting the divorce within Muslim institutional setups. which are pluralistic in nature, where they have they
So
can't unilaterally give
are
divorce.
they getting justice or?
Well, yes. I mean, it's if they desire a divorce, so they could also go to the state courts, the secular courts,
Normal court, yes.
the regular courts. They could go there and they could do this. But I'll tell you one thing about family courts, and this is also something that ethnographers and legal ethnographers have found in family courts, that in family courts, a lot of energy is actually put into bringing about reconciliation, that families should stay together, that divorce should not happen, that it is the last recourse that happens. Now, if you look at Muslim personal law and Islam per se, Islamic view on marriage, it is not the sacrament that must not be broken, which is true in Hindu
It's contract.
law. It's a contract.
It's not janam ka bandhan.
And even in Christian, so if you look at the global scenario also, in most sects of Christianity, you see that divorce is something that is looked down upon. It's something undesirable.
It is not permissible also.
It's not permissible. Whereas in Islam, the view is that it's actually better to separate rather than to live in unhappy marriages. And there is no moral sanction on separation.
Is that Islam has given rights to women, and there are internal resources available within the Islam, and that are being creatively used by Muslim women for their rights.
At least some Muslim
women are using, but somehow the stereotypical image is that Muslim women are only suffering.
Exactly.
Okay. So now this
and suffering at the hand of Islam only. Like power, they're not suffering because there's poverty. They're not suffering because there are no jobs. They're not suffering because there is so much communalism and hatred and violence against Muslims. So those are also avenues.
And one thing you have to keep in mind, that when triple talaq law was being made, against the triple talaq law, Muslims men were made as a criminal, as a villain, and they could be sent to jail for 6 months. There was one criminal provision also. The civil matter was criminalized. But the government did not sanction even 1 rupee for the welfare of the Muslims.
I'll also point out to you, Abhay, that this criminalization of Muslim
civil matter,
triple divorce, the instant triple talaq, what it actually does is that it actually criminalizes abandonment of Muslim women. So let's say, take a hypothetical case where a Muslim man and a Muslim woman are married to each other. They've had a nikah with each other, and the woman doesn't want divorce, whereas the man unilaterally gives that the unilateral divorce in one sitting, which is now outlawed. Does that. Why? Because he wants to abandon the woman, and that is criminalized. So Hindu men or other non-Muslim men can happily abandon their wives without uttering even a single word, and none of that is criminalized. Whereas the Muslim man abandoning a Muslim woman but having uttered 3 words which are illegal to utter actually becomes a criminal.
Okay, so your larger narrative continues that very stereotypical image is being projected about the Muslims community and Muslim women. Now, All India Muslim Personal Law Board, which was formed in 1973-72, which was the news in Sahabano case, also recently in Triple Talaq case. So you must have been reading about them, you must have done some work, you must have read some work on them. Your view on that body, because there is also opinion divided. The board says that it is representative of all Muslims, but we know the fact that there has been a split in the board also, and many feminist scholars, progressive scholars, even from the Muslims community, they have argued that it is upper caste male dominant. Your argument?
Well, honestly speaking, I have read some bits of it, so I'm not entirely ignorant of this debate. But I don't know the exact dynamics of the goings on inside Muslim Personal Law Board. But my own image,
perception about them.
My own perception about them is that I think in the recent past, they have taken in some of this criticism, which is fair. They have been by and large a male body, and I mean, the issue of representation is very difficult. I have not been appointed by anybody to represent Muslims, but sometimes I also speak as if I represent Muslims.
Okay.
So they are also doing that. Well, there's nothing wrong in that. But if they indeed want to represent Muslims, then they must make some institutional changes to actually become more.
Such as your suggestions to, let's say, the president of the board.
Well, because it's not really an elected body. If it was a membership-based body, if it was an elected body, then they could do something related to that. That it would be, they could reserve some of their top positions for people belonging to different sections of Muslim society. They could reserve some positions, top positions, decision-making position for Muslim women. I believe that they have, kind of grudgingly or willingly conceded some of these, but these things are slow to change. And I do think that they should take in some of this, criticism and make changes and, show.
As a Muslim, even your demands and your suggestions, if you want to convey it to the board. Very briefly.
Well, I'll say this. I don't think that they actually represent everybody. Okay. They want to represent people, good for them.
Okay.
And if they think they will become more representative, they should become more representative. But it's not an institution that I think, we are losing a lot. That I go and make demands of them. I have certain aspirations and I make demand of the government of India or state governments or various other institutional mechanisms, etc. that are there. Let's say, for example, what do I want from the government, state and union governments to do vis-a-vis minority commissions, for example, whether they should be appointed in time, they should function, they should have resources, they should have actual powers. I'm not really so bothered about Muslim Personal Law Board. So good for them. If they want to represent, they should become better. And if they don't want to become better, then people will themselves reject them and say, well, you don't represent us,
Okay.
because they're an NGO.
Okay.
I mean, structurally, that's what they are.
Okay.
And they should do what they want to do.
Okay. So we have heard a lot of controversies, opinions on Muslim personal laws. And we know that since 2014-15, Muslim personal laws have been criticized vehemently by different sections. But people generally, mainstream media generally do not write it very explicitly, clearly, that not only Muslims who have personal laws, even Hindus have personal laws. And different communities, maybe Adivasis and tribals, they have their own
customary
laws. So it's not exclusive that the image is being created, oh, Muslims are being governed by personal laws, they are governed by Sharia. And on the other hand, the other people from other communities, they are being governed by the secular law. That kind of false impression is being created and media is not questioning it. Or if it is questioned, it is not good enough. So there is a question of Hindu personal law, okay, and the Muslim personal law. Now the issue of Muslim personal law and the questions of the rights of the women are sometimes I feel that they are not being linked with the personal laws of the Hindu also. Many scholars, feminist scholars, they have argued that to make this view, to make this claim that Nehru reformed personal laws, and Nehru did not reform Muslim personal law because he feared that the community may not vote for him and he will lose the support of the Muslim community. That is not true. When Hindus personal laws were being brought in, at that time Hindutva forces opposed, and Sharmila Rege's work is also there. Ambedkar got frustrated, he resigned, and there was a lot of very bitter critique and a bitter campaign against Nehru and the Congress government from the Hindutva forces also, Rajendra Babu and other Hindu right leaders also. And the feminist argument is also that the Hindus' laws which were codified in such a way that the diversity which were progressive in many ways, they were removed, and one kind of identity was being formed around the upper caste women rituals, and that, if I say that, some kind of a Brahmanization of the Hindu code bill happened. So why today the feminists are not talking about Hindu personal laws and its problem, Muslim personal laws and its problem? Why are they not talking issue in a joint way? Why they are not taking a very holistic view? Why there has been a segregation and the impression is being created that okay, Hindu law is okay, but only there is a problem in Muslim law? You want to add something?
As a scholar,
Yes.
I don't agree that feminists have not talked about it in
No,
that
I'm talking
manner.
about one particular group of feminists.
Yeah, so there's public sphere.
I had disagreement with Zakia Soman when I was interviewing her, and I said that why can't the issue of women be taken collectively? But she said no. Muslims women case is very different. So that the making Muslim case very special, very different. Do you think that this is also a problem? Yes.
I kind of agree with her response also, but I get what you're saying.
Yes.
You're saying something different.
Yes.
And I think that feminist scholars have done a good job. And there are a lot of, especially recently, some very good studies have come out. I've also reviewed one or two of them. I've read several. So I don't think that, that's the case. But that's about scholarship. What happens in the public sphere? How much of social science scholarship or legal scholarship, anthropological scholarship of law actually comes in public domain is the question. And the common sense about
the commonsensical understanding you bring, you ask anybody who is suffering, and 6, 7 out of 10 will say only Muslim women is suffering. Yes.
Yeah, because it suits them to do this, and
yes.
That's why my first response to the UCC question was this, that it has been grossly misrepresented as a question about whether there should be a Muslim personal law or it should be abolished. UCC question is not just about that. I would go so far as to also say that the UCC question is also not only about women. UCC question actually goes to several other domains of civil law, related to, for example, property or wealth, which is also, important. And within that, if, for example, let me take one example, and there's been some good work on this recently. My colleague Chirashri Dasgupta has actually written about it. The Hindu undivided family, which is a taxation law, and it actually gives tax benefits to only Hindus.
Yes.
Right. So that's also a within the ambit of personal law.
Yes.
It's a benefit. It's a sort of economic benefit given only to one community. Would Uniform Civil Code mean abolition of all such laws? Would it include that all customary laws are there?
My question is being supported by your argument also.
Exactly.
That why Hindu Code Bill is presented as something which doesn't need any reforms. This is very good. This is perfect. There is no problem. But on the other hand, the Muslim personal laws are only marked out, singled out, underscored as something that is unjust for the women. I'm just thinking about it.
But that's the majoritarianism, culture of majoritarianism for you.
Yes.
That anything which is Muslim, it has a tag of Muslims attached to it, it becomes communal and problematic and backward and fundamentalist, and you know the list. And anything that's not Muslim by default, it is considered secular and progressive and so on. It's a problem of the way the progressives have carried on in the public sphere, by and large. I don't think it's a specifically feminist problem only. I mean, feminists have been confused about it, but I think that was long ago. Now there is no confusion, But I think there is some bit of NGOization of women's movement where this problem lies. It's not
What
the
do you
feminist
mean by
scholarship.
NGOization of the Muslim women?
Not Muslim women's movement.
Yes. So
it means that it actually is not informed by developing scholarship and developing critique of law and society. It is just fixed into these dominant ways of talking about Hindus and dominant ways of talking about Muslims and stereotypes about Muslim women, and that's what
So it is
it's
not helping much.
perpetuating.
It is not helping much.
It's entirely unhelpful.
Okay, so your work on Muslim Women Speak, we were just talking about some time back, that you have gone and you have talked with Muslim women, and this is very rich work about how they feel, what is their problem. So if I ask you that, or maybe that if policymakers would ask you that what are the problems of the Muslim women, what are their solutions, what would you say? What would you say?
So, drawing from my...
No, you could draw on your work also, you can add something to it also. Could you identify some major problems, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 problems which Muslim women are facing, and what would be your solution? What maybe what the government or the policy makers, maybe the community leaders should do?
Yeah. I think the topmost problem is, of course, the way Muslims are talked about.
Okay.
Because the discourse about Muslims is so skewed and wrong, just completely wrong, that we never come to actually identify the real problems, because we are always looking at them from this religion point of view, and we're not looking at their political positioning, their economic situation, etc. So if you ask me, and I were to give really simplistic answer, which I hate doing, but I'll do it, then there are two problems that are top problems of Muslim women. One, the poverty of Muslim community.
Okay.
Two, all the anti-Muslim violence and devastation that Muslim community has faced for over decades, and it is only intensifying. There's no sort of relief from that.
Even in Delhi, people are openly shouting slogans.
Genocidal slogans.
Yes.
Right. Those are the problems of Muslim women too.
Okay.
Once those problems...
So it's not only just divorce. Yes.
I mean, unhappy marriage, well, get a divorce. Why divorce is a problem is because then a Muslim woman who is, economically completely dependent on other people in the family, has no autonomy.
Yes.
And this is the story of not just Muslim women, but all poor women in India.
Yes.
That
less
divorce...
access to health, less access to education, less access to employment. They are ill paid. They are not paid.
Yes, it's actually, all these indicators of socioeconomic well-being are actually where they have control over it. They've actually done very well.
And I was surprised recently. I was reading some material on Mewati Muslims. Friends, Mewati Muslims are those who live around Gurgaon area, and I was surprised that Muslims living in Mewat area, which is the part of Gurgaon parliamentary constituency, they are, I think, the most backward. And from Delhi, you could reach there in 1 hour by driving a car.
I mean, so geographical distance doesn't matter.
They have lowest level of, what should I say, educations, and now the income of person living in Gurgaon and then the person living in
Mewat.
Mewat, there is a huge gulf. I think a person living in Mewat earns 10 times less than a person living in Gurgaon. So I think your
Yeah.
argument is validated. Yes.
And economic disparity is actually something that's becoming just emblematic of India per se. There's just so much the divide between the rich and the poor is getting deeper and wider. And so where would Muslim fare in that?
If I summarize, you said two things: the poverty and the communal violence, and these are not only Muslim men problem; these are also Muslim women problem, which
It's the
yes,
problem of the entire community.
yes, and also the country as well.
Yes.
Friends, we are talking here in Jamia Nagar, and not far away from this place. We saw last year huge demonstrations against anti-CA laws, and Jamia was one of the center. And Jamia University is just a stone's throw from this place where we are conducting this interview. And Shaheen Bagh is also within 2 kilometers from our place. And Shaheen Bagh saw the rise of Muslim women as protesters and protesters against the CA law and defenders of India's secularism and democracy. So there has been one particular stereotype image of Muslims where Muslims are only suffering, they are being divorced, they have no agency, they are only burqa clad. But in Shaheen Bagh, they were shouting, they were giving slogans in favor of Mahatma Gandhi, Maulana Azad, Bhagat Singh and Ambedkar. You have seen that moment. So would you call it that it was very much historical? Your memory, if you want to add here.
It was definitely, one of the most probably, in the history of India,
Yes.
independent India, it will be counted as one of the important moments. As movements go, I think, there was a lot of surprise because of all these stereotypes about Muslim women. There was a lot of surprise that Muslim women had a political critique of what was going on in India and this sort of lawmaking which was discriminatory. The idea, it definitely was something which hadn't happened for many decades, that Muslim women had, come assembled politically and raised their voice. But to imagine that they were living some kind of oppressed life where they had no idea about what was happening in India and they had no political critique, I think that would be foolish. So what we did saw was a communities, insecurities and existing political discontent. Which was long standing and building up, over many other events and many other attacks on the community, real and perceived. So the Muslim women do have a political critique of all of this. It just so happened that because of the blatant nature of this law and discriminatory nature of this law, and it was a constitutional amendment. It was not just, one simple aspect of some life. It takes away the right to equality from the Constitution of India. So to rise against that and to mobilize then on that issue, although it was not something that anybody was anticipating, it was not something that anybody had foreseen, including Muslim women themselves. They had not planned it and they had not said, well, 6 months from now onwards or next year we will do this. But it happened. And it was not, I don't think it, this idea that they were cooped up in their houses earlier and then they emerged from the houses like, some kind of zombies which had been injected with something, some kind of political.
And the Hindu right would say that they have been funded by anti-national forces, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to dignify that with a response.
Yes. No, that they carried their stories after stories. Yes.
Of course they did, because
Please continue. Yes.
It was visibly Muslim women in a political assembly in public spaces across India, visibly, sort of rejected their decade-long campaign about who Muslim women were. And it was a campaign or a mis-campaign which had actually confused and convinced wrongly so many progressives also. Everybody kind of thought that since Muslim women, do not appear politically together, therefore they don't know anything.
And some so-called progressive people, they also made a statement that in Shaheen Bagh, we are only seeing women who are burqa clad. So they were not ready to recognize their political, their political agency. But on the other hand, they were ready to demonize them. So it was also very sad.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think, burqa is just another garment. So it's not like sari is in itself politically empowering. If you wear a sari, suddenly you'll become a feminist, empowered woman. And if you add a bindi, you become even more, bigger a feminist. Just as a sari is a garment, a shalwar kurta is a garment, a burqa is also a garment. It doesn't do anything to the mind. The mind has a life of its own, right? You have a political critique. Burqa, if you wear a burqa, it doesn't hide the critique. You still have it in your mind, right?
But some people say that burqa is something that is forced upon Muslim women.
It might be forced upon some Muslim women. Let's say there might be women who don't want to wear it and are forced to wear it. There might be, I know some young Muslim women who want to wear it and their families are afraid. They actually tell young Muslim women, why do you want to wear a burqa? Don't wear a burqa. There's so much violence against women. You go out to colleges. I've heard
and they easily identify you.
Easily identified. I've heard of many young women students who, when they travel in metros, they are bothered by people just because they are wearing burqas. So they face that hostility. And they actually want to wear it and they tell their parents, no, I want to wear it. So I know many.
So there is no one picture, there is one.
It's complicated.
So if some people are saying that it is forced upon them, it is equally true that many women, they willingly want to put it on.
They willingly want to put it on for different reasons also.
So it is just a garment, there should not be politics about it.
Well, garments के खाने की politics होती है, garments की भी politics होती है.
Okay. So I am left with just two questions. Now it is getting over. On the questions of reforms, your view is very important. I think friends want to know it. Largely, at least two camps are there on this issue. One says that a state has every right, parliament has got every right to intervene in personal laws, they will do reforms. On the other hand, some people argue, particularly the community leaders, that no, the issues of reforms should be better left to the community. So what will be your positions?
Again, my position is a little complicated.
Okay.
My position is that yes, there should be forces within the community that initiate and lead the process, facilitate the process of reforms. And in India, there are various different practices that Indian Muslims follow that are not really Islamic in their roots, and they are also problematic. So if it's okay if they are not Islamic and you do it, and if it's not a problem, then that's fine. But if it's problematic, it impinges upon freedoms of some Muslims, and it is also not Islamic, then there's no reason why community should stick to those practices. They must give them up, right? On the question of reform within community and personal law per se, I feel that the community must take the lead. I won't say that the state has absolutely, that Indian state has absolutely no role to play in it. But the state as an institution is also not a fixed entity, right?
Okay.
Depending on the ideology in power,
Okay.
the state itself will behave differently.
Okay.
And
Its class character, it's
exactly.
yes.
So, for example, once upon a time, the state saw itself also as a welfare state.
Okay.
Now, the state has given up on that role, even
yes.
if, there's some lip service to it.
Yes.
So,
Neoliberal state.
yes, so if we have a welfare state, if we have a benevolent state that actually is interested in the well-being of its citizens, then I think that kind of state can play a role of facilitating the dialogue within the community to reform. It can encourage it. It can facilitate it. It can actually make clear the space for it to happen, right? And how would it do that? It would actually make sure that all these kind of stereotypical, language is not used about talking about the community. It can encourage the feeling of fraternity and brotherhood and respect and tolerance for each other within the communities. Such a state would actually then provide a level ground for communities to feel okay about then looking inwards, because right now everybody is looking over their corners and they don't trust this state, which has not only not shown any interest in helping the Muslims better their social political positioning, but actually has made it its business to attack Muslims.
Okay.
In such a state cannot do that, play that role of facilitator, of clearing that space. So I don't think that hopefully in future, if we have a state that is more just, we have a government that is actually interested in ensuring that various communities of India are able to lead just dignified lives, then there are problems that are within the community and their practices and their personal law, then they can encourage them to do this. It can be done through various institutions of the state that can play a role in it. I mean, minority affairs, the Ministry of Minority Affairs can, organize,
take the
lead, or at least play some kind of role in it. Make it happen. Make sure that the dialogue happens. Minority commissions can conduct studies.
Yes.
Conduct studies. So you also want to have enough knowledge about what is really happening. What is happening right now is that there's so much smoke about falsehoods.
So much hangama without any homework.
Yeah. And then you're making policies and laws based on prejudices. Then such a state has no role to play.
Okay. So the last question, what do you think that political leaderships or the previous governments are responsible for the backwardness of the Muslims, or the elites within the community who have always been part of, let's say, mainstream, and they have not ever spoken for the rights of the most marginalized from their own community? What is your view? Because there has been a growing perceptions that, be it that what should we say, the communal party, even the secular parties, on many occasions they have not done enough for them.
I agree that the cultural elites within the community or the economic elites within the community have actually
They have gone to Rajya Sabha, they have become governor, they've
not done as much as they could have. That's true.
Yes.
But I would be a little sympathetic to their problems also. Which is that they were merely tokens of who were upholding this whole narrative of the practice of secularism in India, which was as the idea stands, a wonderful idea, but in practice it amounted to nothing but tokenism of this sort. And each of these tokens knew that they were mere tokens, right? Whether because of their backgrounds or because of their positioning, some of them may have actually wanted to do it and not being able to do it because they belonged to certain parties and they couldn't have broken party lines and said what they wanted to say. You don't have that kind of autonomy. And when they had autonomy, some of these people were just so, mired into that culture where you want to always balance, and you are balancing the oppressor with oppressed, rich with poor, those who are out of power with those who are, having surplus of power. You were just doing this insane balancing act all the time, because you have to remember that being a Muslim in public sphere is not easy in India. It never was. Because at the moment you start talking about Muslims and you're a Muslim yourself, you are instantly branded as being communal. Right? So every such person who was in public sphere, they were always burdened by this, fear that if I start talking about Muslim issues, I will be branded communal. And I can give you many examples, and I don't need to give you those examples.
Okay, so about the political parties now, nobody is talking about the genuine rights of the community. I think many Dalit party and party having ideology with Dalit Bahujan, they are going in and they are appeasing, let's say, upper caste, and they are making a claim that we will build the Ram temple. But nobody is going to the Muslim locality. Nobody is talking about giving justice to them. In communal rights, or maybe nobody is talking about employment for them. Do you think that now BJP has become so powerful that any talk of Muslims welfare has become, become the thing of the past?
The problem is deeper than that.
Okay.
I feel that, even if tomorrow in the next general election or in the whatever assembly elections, BJP might win, might lose. But what has happened is deep communalization of, Indian publics.
So you are saying that there has been communalization of secular parties as well?
There has been communalization of secular parties as well to a certain extent, but there's been communalization of Indian masses as well. And so the parties, whether they have this perception wrongly or rightly, I don't know how they're getting their data, right? But if a party...
You tell me, any party, has any party been talking about the rights of the Muslim?
I can tell you that there are parties that have actually said, in not publicly, but they've said, well, we want to, but we can't. So it's like that. The thing is that this idea about, Hindu vote consolidation across caste and class divides, and Muslims being portrayed as the other, against whose, imagined fears of their dominance, etc., are mobilizing all Hindus to come together and vote for one party. And now the competition, whether mistaken, I mean, it's laughable actually what you are describing. It's true, but I find it extremely amusing that if somebody has original, why would they go for a photocopy? If they can vote for BJP, and some other parties are called vote katuas. Why are these parties not called vote katuas?
Okay, so friends, we were just talking about the issue of identity and Uniform Civil Code and several problems related to Indian democracy and minority. With me for 1 hour, Ghazala Jamil from Jawaharlal Nehru University has been talking, and Madam has spoken on various issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you.